So, a very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to this live session on the course on ethical hacking. Well, by now you have covered more than half of this course and you have got a fair feel about how this course is like and how it is progressing. Well, you must have noticed that this course is a little different from the other course some of you might have already attended. Here we are not able to teach you everything how to do. Many things are there which you will have to do yourselves and figure it out, just like how to use the tools, how to simulate a network on which you can actually mount the attacks and see how it works. Well, in the theory part of the course, I tried to give you some kind of a background on how things work, what is the theoretical background or basis behind many of the tools and techniques which are used. Okay? And in the demonstration sessions, we also showed you how some of the existing tools which are there can be used to carry out various kinds of attacks. Okay. We have received a large number of queries from many of you. What we have done, we had compiled some of the more interesting questions and I shall be going through those questions and responses at the beginning. After that, if there is more time, we can take some online questions also. Okay. So, I have compiled these questions starting from today morning till about half an hour back. Okay. So, these will encompass all the recent questions that some of you might have posed. So, let us move on. Well, some of you posed a query like you wanted some explanation of how data gets encrypted and decrypted in the TCP/IP layers during transfer of message. Now, here I want to tell you that when data gets transmitted using TCP/IP, there is no encryption or decryption of data per se. Normally, data goes in plain text form. Whatever is the data, it goes without any encryption. However, if you use some of the secure protocols, for example, SSH. SSH is a secure layer which works at the network layer level, which automatically provides you with some encryption support, so that at the IP layer level your packets gets encrypted. So, if you use SSH, then only your packet will get encrypted, not otherwise. Okay. Similarly, when you use HTTPS, many of us browse the web using some secure HTTP protocol, HTTPS. So, here what happens? Here also we use a combination of public key and private key cryptography to provide some secure kind of communication. Okay. So, these are some additional or special protocols which you need to use if we want to have this kind of encryption decryption support, but by default TCP/IP does not use any kind of encryption. Okay. I think this answers your question. Fine, let us move on to the next one. Okay, this was a question based on a particular assignment that was related to the triple DES protocol. The question was like this. Question says that in triple DES, if you recall that there are 3 blocks, right. During encryption process, there are 3 runs of the DES algorithm. Your plain text is fed or the message is fed to the first block. You first do an encryption, then a decryption, then again an encryption. Of course, you can change this order, but this is how normally it is done. Okay. And these 3 encryption, decryption, encryption, these are done based on some key values. Let us say here we use a key K1, here we use a key K2 and here we use a key K3, and these are 3 runs of the DES algorithm. Okay. And during decryption, when you do, you will be working in the reverse fashion. Like from left to right we used K1, K2, K3. During decryption we will be using the reverse order. There we will be doing first D, then E, then D, because D and E will cancel each other. Encryption followed by decryption or decryption followed by encryption will cancel each other. Now, your basic confusion was, you said that you had searched on Google and found that somewhere it says that effective key length in triple days is 112 bits. Now, the point is, every encryption, this K1, K2, K3, these key values, these are 56 bit quantities. So, if this K1, K2, K3 are all different, then your effective key size is 56 multiplied by 3, which is 168 bits. Okay? Your effective key size will be 168 bits, not 112. But in many DES implementation, you really do not need 168 bits. So, for those cases what is done, these key values K1 and K3 are sometimes made the same. So, effectively you have two different keys, K1 and K2. So, in those cases your effective key size will be 56 into 2 or 112. That is the basic reason why in some of the websites it mentions that the effective key length in triple DS can be 112, but in general it is 168, not 112. If K1 and K3 are two of the keys are equal, only then it will become 112. And someone else had also asked a related question. You said that if a data packet has triple node encryption like this, how could it still reveal the data? Can an attacker attack and get out the data still? Now, the point is, here I have summarized my comment here in the second part. You see, whether or not an attacker will be able to break your code and get out your hidden data, it depends on how strong your encryption decryption algorithms are. If your algorithms are strong enough, then it is extremely difficult for the attacker to break it. If your key is sufficiently large enough, it will be difficult for the attacker to break and find out. Okay? So, it does not depend on anything else. It depends on the strength of your algorithm and what is the size of the key you are using. If your key is not large enough, then the attacker can possibly mount a brute force attack. Using all possible key values, the attacker can try and decode it, right. Okay. So, let us move on. There was a query, a very short query in fact. One of you had some confusion in understanding the concept of broadcast. What is meant by broadcast? You see, broadcast is any kind of communication where you are sending something and everyone else can receive it. Like radio, when you send out radio signal through some antenna, the signals are spread in all direction, and anywhere where you have a radio receiver, you can receive the signal. So, in a computer network, in a similar way, when you send a packet with a broadcast address to a particular network, the packet will reach that network and it will be delivered to all the hosts in that network. The packet will go simultaneously to all the computers or hosts that are present in the network. That is called broadcast, right. Okay. Now, coming from network related question, here there is a basic conceptual question related to the definition of ethical hacking. So, one of you asked, what is ethical hacking and how ethical hacker is different from a normal so called hacker as we call. Okay. And a related question was, what is the use and purpose of ethical hackers in companies? Now, see, I already discussed this in the very first class. Ethical hacker, as the name implies, there is something called ethics involved. You are trying to attack or hack a network or some kind of an infrastructure. You are trying to mount an attack, but you are doing it with some ethical purpose in your mind. You are doing it for some non-malicious intent. You are not trying to harm anybody, you are not trying to steal any information from anywhere, you are possibly mounting the attack to find out what are the weak points in that network, so that you can tell that company or that that particular organization that, well, look, here are your weak points, you can try and reconfigure your system so that those weak points are plugged, okay, those vulnerabilities are mitigated. So, ethical hackers basically, as I told you, tries to find out vulnerability in a network so that someone else can possibly plug in those loopholes. But a conventional hacker, as we call, like many of you have been facing some trouble in accessing the site for examination payment, examination registration. So, many of you may not be knowing that the examination site was hacked by somebody. I am not naming anything, we have identified that from which place. But here somebody attacked a system or a server with some malicious intent. This is not ethical hacking, this is a conventional hacking attempt with some malicious intent in mind. Okay? Fine. Let us move on. Okay, here is a question based on hash function, based on one-way hash function. The question was something related to how things work in a one-way hash function. The question, I am reading out the question once. In one-way hash function, the message and key are appended together and perform hash function on it and sending it to receiver. The question was why the receiver again needs to append the key to M. Already it contains message and key. If we append the key with hashed message, then the output hash value will be different from sender's hash value. Well, apparently the person who posed this question did not understand the process very clearly, how exactly we are using it. Well, here I have tried to explain the steps, the typical flow, what happens. You try to understand, step by step I am explaining. Let us say I have a message M which I want to send, I want to authenticate also, I want to use cryptographic hash function to create a hash. Now, this is a keyed hash function. So, what I do, I use a message M and also I have a secret key value k. The sender is having the message M to send and also the sender is having a secret value k which is shared with the receiver also. Receiver also has k. So, first thing what the sender does, it concatenates k and m. This symbol means k and m are put together, joined together, that is called concatenation, and the hash function is applied to the whole thing. The secret key plus the message, both together the hash is applied and the hash value, let us say h, is computed. And after computation, the sender sends something to the receiver. What is that something? The sender sends the message and also this computed h. It does not send the key value because receiver already knows what is k. It sends the message and the computed key value. The receiver after receiving has to verify that whether it is coming from the right place. How does it verify? The receiver already has the key value, I said k, and it has received the message also. Let us say the received message is m dash. It again does a concatenation, the key value with the message it receives. It again applies the same hash function and it gets some hash value computed, let us say h prime, and the receiver also receives the hash value because the sender has sent the message and the computed hash. So, the receiver will compare this h prime with the received hash value and check whether they are equal or not. If they are equal, it will mean that the message is actually coming from the intended sender, because it is only the intended sender and the receiver who are sharing that secret key value k. If the key value is something else, then the hash value computed will be something different, there will be no match. Okay. This is how this works, right. Okay. All right. Well, this is a standard question which we have discussed in forum also a number of times. This says TCP, as we have discussed, is a connection oriented reliable data transfer protocol, but IP is a connectionless datagram based protocol which is not reliable, which means IP does not guarantee delivery of packets. Some packet might get lost, duplicate packets might get generated, and packets may be delivered out of order also. A packet which was sent later may be arriving before, right. So, these are a few things which IP possesses some properties. Now, we are saying TCP is reliable, but the point is TCP is running on top of IP. What does TCP do? TCP has a message or a segment to send. It will break it up into small chunks and give it to IP, and IP will create individual packets out of them, and those packets will be transmitted. And IP does not worry about reliability. IP is an unreliable service, I told you. So, some packets might get delivered, some packet also might get lost. So, finally, these packets will be delivered to the final destination where it is intended to, and the TCP layer at that host will be receiving all the packets finally from the IP layer. And TCP layer may find that, well, I have received all the data, but some part of it is missing, which may mean that one of the packet was lost. So, now the TCP layer will be sending back an explicit acknowledgement, negative acknowledgement to the sender, saying that, well, this part of data is still missing with me, I have not received, you please send it again. So, the sender, the TCP layer at the sender machine will again send that block of data as through IP as another IP packet possibly, and it will be reaching the final destination where everything will be received ultimately, and it will be delivered through IP to the application. This is how TCP keeps track of the data, what was sent and what is received. If there is any missing data, some explicit retransmission requests are sent and reliability is ensured, right. So, even though IP underlying protocol which is used by TCP is not reliable, but TCP makes some extra checking, extra bookkeeping to ensure that to the application this service remains a reliable service. Okay. Fine. Now, many of you are having some queries or doubts regarding NMAP. Well, today I received 2 or 3 queries, but in the forum there were many queries, numerous queries were there. Now, I understand the reason. In the lectures I did not cover NMAP. In the demonstration sessions lot of things were covered that were related to NMAP, different ways you can use NMAP to do various things. So, there were a lot of queries that was arising in your mind regarding the different options that were there in NMAP and what are the meanings, how to use them in different scenarios. Okay. Particularly, I am referring to 2 of the queries I received. Well, here one of you said explain all the commands of NMAP in detail. I understand that because it was not covered formally in the lectures, you want a more comprehensive explanation. And some of you was having a very specific question that while carrying out a vulnerability scan, your NMAP was going in a loop, it was repeatedly scanning if you use the -T4 flag option. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is that, well, we appreciate that understanding the different commands of NMAP is very important in the context of this course. So, what we have decided is that in the last week we shall have some supplementary lectures, special lectures where we shall be again coming back to NMAP and look into the detailed format. It will be a formal kind of a discussion. What are the different possible options in NMAP, what does they mean, in different scenarios, how you can use them with lot of examples. We shall be explaining all these things. Okay. So, this is the first thing, and the second question that you had raised is that the reason is that let us say the particular IP you are trying to scan, it is possible that that particular IP is unreachable, or you are unable to find any open port on that IP. It is possible, that is why it is keeping on scanning, it is not stopping. So, again it relates to the point that whether you are using the correct flags in the NMAP command. Now, if we use the NMAP with a flag minus minus count with the number of rounds, then what will happen? Then each port will be scanned only for the specified number of rounds. If you say 10, it will be scanning it 10 times. If it fails, it will come out. So, it will not continue doing this indefinitely. Okay. So, by suitably using the flags, you can avoid all these problems. Now, as I said, these things we shall be discussing in detail in the last week of lectures. Okay. Fine. Well, one of you asked a very general question, what is the difference between vulnerability assessment and security assessment? Now, strictly speaking, these two terms are sometimes used synonymously, they are used to mean the same thing. But if you dig into Google, if you do a Google search and try to get the dictionary meaning of these two things in the context of ethical hacking, then you will find that there is a small difference. Security assessment means both trying to identify the vulnerabilities and also trying to find out solutions to mitigate them, both. But vulnerability assessment is only the first part, trying to find out the vulnerabilities. Okay. So, you can say strictly speaking, vulnerability assessment is a subset of security assessment. Security assessment consists of firstly vulnerability assessment, and secondly to provide some solutions which is sometimes called risk mitigation, how to mitigate the risks with respect to the vulnerabilities that have been detected. Okay? All right. Well, one of you asked something which actually was not covered in this course, in the lectures. There is something called Trusted Platform Module or TPM. So, the question was how TPM actually work. Now, see, Trusted Platform Module, let us assume it is a theoretical concept. You design a system, it can be a chip, it can be an IC chip that is based on a trusted platform module which theoretically cannot be hacked, because you use all the hardware security features into it. In terms of software also, you design the software very carefully, so that you feel that it is not possible to hack or break that chip in terms of security. But as I told you, as a designer you should always feel that the hackers are one step ahead of you, they are more intelligent than you. Whatever you design, nothing is 100% foolproof. Someone somewhere sitting somewhere should be able to find out some loophole in your design and should be able to break it sometime or the other. So, that should be the spirit, that should be the assumption. So, TPM, the idea is that you are making a system very hard to break, but you are not saying impossible to break is not the correct word. Nothing is, as I said, nothing is 100% foolproof. There is always a possibility that someone will be able to find a loophole even if in your trusted platform module, because you see your TPM is based on some known concepts, and in the known concepts there can always be some weaknesses, right. So, this is the basic idea. Okay. Let us move on from the questions to some general questions which many of you are asking regarding job opportunities. Of course, this question is not directly related to what we are trying to cover in this course, At the beginning I told you that we are not trying to give you some training which will give you jobs. No, we are trying to provide you with a platform on top of which you will be able to explore, you will be able to learn new things, you will be able to gain expertise in this field. Just doing this course will not give you any job, make this thing very clear. You see, if your career goal is to become an ethical hacker, there are so many certification courses available, like CEH is one of the more commonly used and popular courses many people take. But again, doing that CEH course itself will not give you any job. Wherever you go for interview, whoever will be taking you, they will actually assess how much you know and how much value addition can you make to their organization or institution, right. Now, you see, this ethical hacking as a discipline is interdisciplinary in nature. To become a good ethical hacker, you have to be experts in so many different things. You have to be an excellent computer programmer, because just using available tools to carry out attack, that is not ethical hacking. You will find many a times that you will have to build or develop your own tools, because you are trying to do something for which ready-made things are not available. So, you must be a very good programmer. Secondly, you must be a very good computer scientist, particularly in the area of systems. You must understand operating systems, networks, threadbare in detail. Unless you know the basic foundation of the subjects, you will not able to understand and exploit many of the things that are required to carry out such kind of, you can say, attacks or penetration testings. Okay. So, this is something I wanted to tell you. If you want to make this a career opportunity, it is up to you. You will have to learn it yourself. And you see, these certification courses like CEH, they will help, they will make your CV a little brighter. But bottom line is, the people who will be trying to hire you, they will assess how much you know and how deeply you know, because just having a CEH certification does not mean anything. Okay. And many of you were asking about internship opportunities. Well, this is true with all NPTEL MOOC courses, not only this particular course. NPTEL offers internship opportunity to the toppers for every course. Like the top 5% performance whoever secures, they can get a chance to do internship in one of the top institutes in India, some of the IITs or some other similar places. Okay. So, I think here I could answer some of the questions in a very generic way relating to this job opportunities and other things you are asking. Okay, let us come back to the other queries. Some of you were asking about clickjacking. Clickjacking means you have a website, some pages coming, you click on something, but actually after clicking you are going to somewhere else. You are redirected to a malicious site. Many a time it happens. You see, first thing is that you should be very aware what website you are visiting. If it is a website which you are not very sure of, you must not click on any of these unsolicited buttons. There are tools which are available which can tell you whether some website is possibly a clickjacking, you can say vulnerable to clickjacking, but it can never say whether it is an implementation of clickjacking. Clickjacking is a term which is used. It has come from hijacking. So, you will have to use a variety of tools, not just there are some frame based methods. They see whether the page can be loaded into one iframe, and there are various related things which concerns the HTML encoding of the pages, where the URLs are being redirected to, a number of things are there. But again, you can never be 100% sure, you can only mark some of the websites as suspect, that these are possibly suspect cases, you should explore them in more detail. Okay. This is what is normally done. Some of you are asking in general that why do we use Linux mostly for hacking purposes and not use Windows or Mac or other platforms. Well, there is no reason why you can't use Windows or Mac or any other platform for hacking purpose. The reason that most of the hackers prefer Linux are basically two things. First one is Linux is an open source platform, as you know, the source code is available. Because the source code is available, as a hacker you can play around with the source code, you can modify the source code and customize them as per your requirements, which is not so easy to do in, let us say, Windows. And secondly, there are some Linux distributions, well, one of them you are already familiar with, Kali, where already some popular hacking software have been put in one place. So, as a beginner you can use that kind of a Linux distribution as your starting point to learn how to hack. Okay. So, these are a couple of reasons why Linux is a popular choice for many of the, you could say, hackers or the beginners. But as I told you, if you are a professional hacker, if you take it as a profession, you will have to develop your own tools in the future, and these tools may be based on multiple platforms. Well, it is not there here. Some of you was also asking, can some of these tools be ported to mobile platforms? Well, yes, the mobile phones today are also quite powerful. Some of the tools can definitely be ported on mobile platforms and used for your mobile systems, but again all tools may not be perform that, because configurability on the mobile platforms is somewhat limited. On a desktop or a laptop, you can do it in a much more flexible and better way. Okay. Well, there was a query that how can we stay anonymous? Well, some of you raised some questions which I thought was a little unethical. You basically asked the same question, but you said that how I can stay anonymous so that government agencies cannot catch us. Well, that is not the spirit. If you are doing something ethical, nothing unethical, no one will catch you. But if you are trying to do something harmful, which is harmful to others with some kind of malicious intent, then you are subject to, you can say, some actions in the future. If you are caught doing some act, some action will be taken against you depending on the law of the land. Okay? Fine. Now, generally speaking, you can browse the internet in an anonymous way using a combination of several things. Like you can set your browser to the private mode, this is the most basic thing, where all your cookies will be disabled. Normally the website can access your cookies and get some information about yourself, what you do, whatever websites you visit and so on and so forth. But if your cookies are disabled, then at least your website cannot get those information from your computer. And second thing, all of us are using Google, Yahoo, so many search engines. But trust me, these search engines are not innocent. Whenever you are using Google, Google is keeping track of your behavior. What are the kind of sites you are visiting? So, automatically next time you visit, you will see that some relevant advertisements will automatically pop up on your screen. That is done by Google for their marketing. So, they are also secretly stealing information from you without asking you. Okay? This is something you should remember. And if you want to hide your IP address, there are a couple of ways which normally people use. One is by using a proxy server or by using a virtual private network, VPN. Now, using VPN also some encryption is carried out in addition, right. And there is another tool which is available, this is also quite popular nowadays, called TOR, is called onion routing. Onion routing is basically a multi-level routing kind of a thing, where multi-level encryption is carried out on the data that you are trying to transmit. And this is like a very interesting kind of an architecture. So, I am not going to detail of this, but if you use TOR, which is available for free, you can install it, you can make your browser compatible with TOR, then whatever you do, it will automatically be subject to something called multi-layer encryption. Just like the layers of an onion, there will be multiple layers, so that your information will be secure ultimately. You will remain anonymous. Okay? But again I am saying being anonymous is good, but do not try to do anything malicious by remaining anonymous, that is unethical. Okay, there is a question that is there any way of carrying out password cracking other than brute force? Okay, brute force is of course a technique. There are other more sophisticated techniques like dictionary based attacks, rainbow based attacks, they can be used. But the thing is that password cracking is considered to be a relatively easier problem for the hackers, because just as a human behavior, you can say most of us use very weak passwords, and even the very naive password cracking methods will be able to crack at least one password in most networks. That is the thing. Okay. Some of you asked about the Nexus tool. You said that the Nexus vulnerability scanner is expensive. Yes, it is expensive if you want to buy the licenses. But if you download the free version, of course, in the free version you do not get all the facilities, but you get most of the facilities which will be sufficient for the beginners. So, you can always start with the beginners version which is available on this website, download it and start using it and learning it. No one stops it from learning. You can learn it for free, you can download it for free, you can also learn it for free. But if you want the commercial version, you will have to pay a license fee. Okay? That is the idea. Some of you asked regarding some specific applications of TCP and UDP. Well, UDP, as you know, is connectionless, has smaller header size, less overhead, but not reliable. Now, UDP has many protocols which use, like routing information protocol RIP, DNS domain name system, dynamic host control protocol DHCP, simple network management protocol, and one of the earlier protocols I already talked about earlier, trivial file transfer protocol TFTP. These are some examples, and some of the streaming media applications also, not all, some of them, they use UDP. TCP is typically used by applications which demand reliability, loss of information cannot be tolerated, like in electronic mail, you cannot lose information, file transfer, exactly the file has to be transferred to the other side, HTTP, secure shell, these are some examples where TCP is used. Okay. There is a question which says that you are having two PCs which are connected via a switch. Okay. Now, the question is, can I run some exploits on one PC from the other? Well, you can do everything, but one thing you should remember, that when you are having a switch in the middle, let us say you are having a switch here and you have one PC connected here and another PC connected here. The switch is basically partitioning your set of computers into two different networks. This will be your network 1, this will be your network 2. So, whatever kind of attack you mount here, it will be from an external network to another network, like that, not that from within a network you are attacking another machine, not like that. A switch will be segregating your entire network into two different networks. Okay. This will be the only difference. There is a confusion, this question actually keeps coming in the forum also, difference between edge router and default gateway. So, you see when you have an organizational network, I am just showing it by a schematic. This is an organization. For example, in our institute IIT Kharagpur, this is our organizational network. Let us say we have several routers which have connections to the outside door. That means, there are some other routers externally through which we have the connections. Maybe one is from Airtel, one is from BSNL, one is from some other, one is from NKN. These are called edge routers. See, edge routers are sometimes also called access routers or core routers. They allow internal network packets to travel to the outside world, outside the network. These are called edge routers. And default gateway is defined with respect to the routing table. Whenever you have a packet to send, you have a destination address, you compare and try to match where it is getting a match. Wherever it is matching, that corresponding interface, the packet is sent over that. But if nothing is matching, you specify one of the edge routers as default. Let us say here this will be my default. So, if nothing matches, my packet will be sent via this router, via this path. That is the idea of a default gateway or a default router. Okay. There was a general query like that we have been hearing about data science, machine learning, deep learning, neural network, so many kind of emerging technologies of artificial intelligence AI that are being used in increasing number of applications. So, the question was, how can these technologies be used to make better encryption and hashing algorithms? My answer to this is that you cannot use this technique for designing better encryption and hash algorithms. No. Encryption and hash algorithms are based on well defined mathematical foundation. They require rigorous theory of mathematics. They are not based on this machine learning stuff. But where you can use this algorithm is, if you are wanting to analyze vulnerabilities in a network, lot of data packets have been analyzed, lot of traffic have been analyzed, you want to carry out an analysis on that and try to find out whether there has been any intrusion or not, whether there has been some kind of an exceptional condition happening in the network, those you can automatically deduce using this kind of learning mechanism, okay, but not in developing the basic cryptographic algorithms. That is a different branch of science and that will remain like that. Okay. And there is another question like this was related to NMAP. There are a few things that I mentioned, but the main question was that why do this computer gets virus in spite of everything? That means I am having a good security, everything, but still my computer is getting virus. You see, more than 99% of the cases a computer gets infected through electronic mails. We open an attachment without being sure whether it is an authentic attachment or not, and an attachment can contain malicious content. If I open an attachment with a malicious content, then immediately my machine gets affected. This is the main source of computer viruses infecting a machine. Okay. So, you should be extremely careful when you are opening attachments from a mail that is coming. Okay. Sorry. This is a question related to ping. Well, when we have the IP address of another host, maybe the same network on other network, I can give a command ping with an IP address. The ping command will generate an ICMP packet on the target network and it will be responding back with a ping response with an ICMP echo response. This was one question, first part of the question, that you can ping to any host, either the same network or other network. That ping will also give you the round trip delay, how much time it is taking for the request to go and the echo response to come back. And there is something called network address translator, well, which we have not discussed in detail. Maybe in the last week we shall cover a little bit about NAT. Network address translator basically converts private IP addresses to public IP addresses and vice versa. Because inside a large organization, most of the computers will be having private IP addresses, but when you are trying to communicate with the outside world, you cannot communicate with private addresses. Someone must be translating those private into public addresses and then only the request can be sent. And there is a common technique called port address translation, that when this goes on, the port number is automatically changed, so that all requests are considered to be unique requests. So, this mechanism we shall be discussing in some detail in the last week, but this is how NAT works, private to public address and also and the response when it comes back, the reverse process, public to private, back to private, so that the response can come back to my machine. Okay. This question was related to host based intrusion detection system, or HIDS. The question says that how to create a real intrusion attack on any managed device and how to check whether this HIDS that is installed there is working correctly or not. Well, the actual mechanism is fairly simple. You will actually have to mount some attack and see whether HIDS is able to detect them or not. Some of the attacks which are typically mounted, these will be discussed in your next week lectures, like amplification attacks, buffer overflow attacks, UDP attacks, ICMP attacks. These are some typical attacks. You can mount those attacks on that host, and that HIDS software is already installed there. You check whether HIDS is able to detect that or not. Okay. This is the basic idea. There is another question again related to machine learning thing. Say that how machine learning algorithms and techniques can be used to mount some kind of attacks or to create defenses like spam detection. Well, here I have provided some explanation. It says that this can be used because we can use many specific words that we normally find in spam mails, like win, lottery, prizes, lucky winner. We get millions and billions of money every alternate day, right. So, these are some typical keywords which you can look at, the messages which are coming to you, and you can identify the possible spams. These are possibly spam. So, what you will have to do for this is you will have to provide thousands of such sample documents, spam and non-spam. You run machine learning algorithms on that, try to extract the most important significant keywords that can classify the spam and non-spam documents. Then later on in real time, when the actual documents are coming, you can run that same machine learning algorithm to do a classification that documents belong to the spam category or the non-spam category. So, these can be used, machine learning techniques can be used here. Okay. Now, there was another question regarding metasploit, that whether we use metasploit within a network or we can also use from outside the network. Now, the point is that we can do both, but if you are using metasploit for another network, you can do it, but again you have to remain ethical in whatever you are doing. You should first obtain the required permission or authorization from the network administrator where you are trying to do it, and then only you should do. Okay? Or otherwise it will be considered as some kind of illegal act on your part. All right. So, there can be many questions, but I have a summary slide. Let me talk about it a little bit. That in this course on ethical hacking, I have repeatedly emphasized, and my TA has also emphasized it repeatedly, that we should be responsible for whatever you are doing. If you are carrying out some hacking experiments, you should be solely responsible for whatever you are doing. Okay? And this ethical hacking is a very tricky subject. It means what is ethical, what is non-ethical, it depends on the interpretations of individuals. But we would expect that you should be sane enough to have a proper way of identifying what is good and what is not good, not only for you, for others also. Never do anything that can create any harm to others. Not only that, if you are accessing information from other places without taking required permission, this is as good as stealing something. If you are getting, if you get caught, some actions may be taken against you also regarding that. And over time, we have already something in place. Even stronger cybersecurity regulations and laws will emerge. The basic bottom line is that if you are a responsible and honest citizen, you need not worry about it. Whatever you do, it should be within the rules, it should be within the guidelines, and it should be within the rules of the land. So, are there any queries? There are a few additional questions which have come. Let me just discuss them offline. I do not have slides for this. There is a question on how cookies work. You see, cookies are something which gets stored in your computer. Cookie contains two things: the name of the cookie and the value of that cookie. The name value pair can be anything, like when you go to a site, the username and password, the username can be the name and your password can be the value, or something like that. Okay? So, now when you visit some website, that website may be forcing you to store some cookie on your browser, and once you have those cookies stored on your machine, the website can also read the values of the cookies. So, that way some of your information may be taken out or stolen from other places. So, many a times when you want a safe environment of browsing or working, we typically disable the cookies. We turn the cookies off and then we do browsing, so that nothing from our machine can be taken out. Okay? This is one. There was one query that how to install Linux along with Windows. Of course, now this is a fairly standard thing. You can install multiple operating systems on the same machine by making the machine dual boot or triple boot, or you can even install it under a virtual environment, just like the way in the demonstration sessions some of the OSs you have involved, you had installed. But normally Linux and Windows, when you install on our own machine, we do it in a dual boot mode, because we do not use both of them at the same time. We use either Windows or Linux. So, when you boot it with a proper option, it will be booting as Windows or it will be booting as Linux. All right. Well, one of you said that you are using Kali Linux, but you are not able to connect to the internet when you are using Kali Linux. Now, we would suggest you check your proxy setting. It seems that your proxy setting is not proper, because of which your access to the internet is getting disturbed or disrupted. So, you should check your proxy server setting carefully in the configuration and see that whether it is specified properly. And other thing, this is quite natural. Someone is saying that you have installed VirtualBox and Kali and after that your machine is becoming slow. You see, everything that runs under a virtual environment, the performance will go down, that will become slower, right. So, if you install VirtualBox and Kali on your PC or laptop, it will definitely slow down. An alternative is that you can use live Kali, you can use Kali on a pen drive and use it only when it is required. That way your machine will not be loaded with this additional burden of running something in the virtual environment and the things will getting slow. So, there are actually ways to do it. Okay? You can mitigate this, you can minimize the performance penalty here. And some other query some of you asked regarding password cracking. Password cracking demonstrations will be covered in the 9th week. So, you will be learning about different techniques for password cracking. And some of you asked about the ping command. You see, at the Linux level in the command prompt, ping is like a command, ping IP address. So, what happens? As if a message goes to that machine with IP address, specified IP address, and something comes back and you see a sequence of lines coming that a ping reply obtained after so many milliseconds, after so many milliseconds. Now, actually what happens is that the low level, when you give the ping command, an ICMP request is sent to that particular IP address, Internet Control Message Protocol. And when that ICMP request reaches that machine, an ICMP echo response packet comes back. This is the process of ping. Ping is actually a front end of ICMP echo response packet transmission and receiving. So, usually this ping is used to check whether a particular host is alive or not. If I sent a request, if it is alive, it will sending me back a response, right. So, I think we have covered almost okay. Now, some of you are saying that the demonstration sessions are pre-recorded, it should be interactive. Yes, we agree. It is naturally, if it is interactive, it will be more interesting for you. But you see, you should understand that this is a course we are trying to offer for the first time. So, for the first time there will be some hiccups and we are facing some hiccups. There are some problems with the audio quality you must have experienced in the earlier weeks. So, we are trying to improve, but even if we are not been able to make the demonstration sessions interactive, but at least we have tried to improve the quality to the extent possible. But one thing we can promise, that when this course runs again in the next run, we shall be trying to incorporate all your comments, make this you can say these demonstration sessions interactive and live, not like pre-recorded video. It will be live kind of a demonstration sessions, you can see it. I will do something here and you can see what is happening directly. That will be much more useful, I believe. And as I said, in the last week I shall be specifically covering some details of some of the tools which are not covered in the demonstration session. Particularly NMAP is a very useful tool that can be used for ethical hacking purposes. So, you should be knowing what are the different kind of options available and what they actually mean, because the meaning is also not very obvious for all cases. So, we shall be trying to spend some time on those things at the end. So, are there any other questions? Sir. Okay. So, I do not think, and means I would like to introduce you to the TA. I do not think you have seen him earlier, Devnarayan Yadav. Here, okay. Yeah, he is Devnarayan Yadav. He is one of the TAs. He has been interacting with you, responding to many of the queries in the forum. And the other TA, Dr. Kamalika Datta, she is not here, she is in Singapore right now. She is interacting with you offline from there. So, I am sure she is also here, means just looking at an hand, means watching whatever is going on in this session. Okay. So, I think this kind of interaction session is good. We shall try to have another interaction session down the line a little later. We shall talk to the NPTEL office and find out. And also let us keep the discussion forum active. We try to address the queries wherever we get time. Whenever you post some queries, we try to address them without much delay. So, I hope you can appreciate, but there are more than 40,000 students enrolled for this course and there are so many queries which come, but still we try our best to address your queries to the best possible extent. So, with this we come to the end of this live session. So, I think we are able to address most of your questions, may not be all, most of your questions, relevant questions, but still if something is missing, please again post it on the discussion forum. We shall address them one to one with you. Thank you.